Good evening, everyone. You're in the spotlight with Brian Gardner for this Tuesday, December the 5th, 2017. Good to have you all here for our first of two shows this week. Um, as always, I'll get into a couple of things here in a few moments. Let me get the reminders out of the way first here. As always, have your voice heard. Get involved in the show, interact with us by emailing us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. Of course, you can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411. Remember to use the hashtag itspotlight411. And of course, again, as always, you can find us on Facebook. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook, and then make sure that you follow us on there and like our page. All right, so we're on the air a little late tonight. Couple of reasons. One, I'm sure you'll notice there is in our area some issues going on. We have some really pretty bad wind and rain going on here, and this is going to be a problem probably all night. So just going to have to bear with us. If there's any problems, please, again, just be patient with us. The best we can do. I've been fiddling with this all day. I even ran a test earlier because I always worry when we have situations like wind and I always worry about when we have like wind and rain and stuff like that. So I always try to kind of like, prepare myself and make sure I see where we're at and what's going on and all that kind of stuff. So I anticipated this. In fact, there was a part of me that was going to just cancel today, and I decided not to do that. I just thought, but I hate to do that, and then it puts us behind, and then it puts us in a bind. So I decided not to do that, and I figured we could get the show off. So again, just bear with us tonight. Hopefully everything will work out. We'll get everything in. There won't be any problems. You can hear us and all that kind of stuff. So just bear with us. That is one of the reasons why I'm late. The other reason why is what I was, and that's the primary reason why I was late. But the other reason is that I got caught watching the Jim Valvano speech, which, tonight is the Jimmy V Classic, a big night in college basketball, big night in sports. And, you don't have to be a college basketball fan to appreciate what this event is about. It's a lovely event. It raises a lot of money. The V Foundation does a lot for cancer research, and obviously tonight does a lot towards that. And I say this every year, and I'll continue to say it. Please, if you can, give to the V Foundation. Do all you can. Any even the smallest amount will help. It's a good way to raise funds. It's very helpful, and again, if you can do it, please do so, because it's a great cause, and does a lot of good work. So, and a night like this, it kind of reminds you. I mean, it's something you should do all year round, but a night like this kind of reminds you of these, great causes and things that help a lot of people. So, tonight we're thinking about the V Foundation. So if you can give even as low as $5, just anything that you can do, always greatly appreciated in that regard. I'm sure they appreciate it. And it's, again, I think everybody's life has been touched by cancer in some way, shape, or form. Somebody, or somebody that knows somebody, or maybe you've been directly impacted by it. Excuse my dog, she's going crazy here. Maybe somebody that's been directly impacted, or you've been directly impacted yourself. Everybody in some way, shape, or form has been touched by it. So it's a horrible disease, and it's something that we hope someday we can get a cure for. And they've already made such great strides in treatment too. So, the V Foundation helps with that. So if you can give anything to that, please do so. That's a great cause to help out and be involved in. So. I wanted to note that off the top, and watching that speech just gets to me every year. So I was about to start the show, and then I heard that, and I saw it on TV, and then I was like, I have to stop and watch it. So I did that. So that's why I was like, oh, that's another reason. But that only held me back about 10 minutes. But anyway, so we have the Jimmy V Class now. We'll talk about those games. Villanova-Gonzaga was game one. Villanova won that game. Gonzaga put up more of a fight in that game than I thought they would, but still pretty easy Villanova win, I thought. And now Syracuse-Connecticut, a little old school Big East matchup for you tonight. Going on right now. They're just getting underway, so a little later than expected, but They're underway right now. So Syracuse, Connecticut right now. That's the second game. We'll keep you up down that game while we go on, while we're on the air. And as I mentioned before, we'll talk about the Villanova-Gonzaga game later on. We'll talk about all the big college basketball games from the last week, because there were a lot of them later on in the show. We also got some baseball stuff to get to. Shohei Otani, who shocked the world on Sunday night with his decision, or his eliminations, I should say, because he hasn't made a decision yet, but he eliminated several teams off, more than half of the teams in the Major League Baseball were eliminated by him over the weekend. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about Aaron Boone's hiring. We'll do some wrestling with Raw and Smackdown. We'll talk about the college football playoff selections. And, of course, we have the NFL to get to, and we'll talk about Week 13, look ahead to Week 14. But we also have to talk about another thing, too. If you watched that game last night, and I didn't watch it live, but I was grateful that I was able to see enough today. One of our fans, because I read stories about it, and I saw clips. I'm like, well, I have to see more than this, because I'm not going to talk out of turn. I don't like to do that. So I want to see more. I need to see more. And I was luckily able. One of our fans sent me some more clips, and sent me some more. For some of them, one of them sent me a live piece of footage, which I guess it was a Steelers fan that was there live, which wasn't the greatest. Greatest, most best quality, I should say, but it was helpful nonetheless. So I've seen more, and we'll talk about it, and I think it's going to lead us into doing a special show at some point about what the future of the NFL is, because there's a lot of discussion about last night's game and about the NFL as a whole. We've done that a lot this season, and we're going to continue to do that, obviously, because I think the NFL has totally come off its peak now. I think we said that numerous times throughout this year, and no doubt we're going to continue to say, because it's not getting any better for the NFL. If it's not one thing, it's another. But we'll talk in particular about last night and some of the other things that went on this week. I didn't put in the show description, but obviously the Gronkowski thing, which is absurd. And if you saw some of the suspensions that came down today, it makes what they did with Gronkowski even more absurd. So we'll talk about all that. So we got a lot to get to, and I'll talk more about schedules and what's coming up the rest of the week and beyond. We'll talk about that later. I want to just get right into things right now here and start things off here today with what we have to get to. And obviously Mike will join us at some point here in the program. So all right, let's get down to it, and we'll start with the NFL, because I think he would blow a gasket. He'd blow a gasket. That's my. I've said that word at least 4 times today, and I don't know why that word isn't. It's like I don't have like a Digsby calendar or anything, but every now and then a random word sticks in my head, and I say it several times during the day, and it's a word that I normally would never ever say. And gasket's the word for today. I've said it like 4 times. I don't get why I'm saying it, but anyway. So I just go with it. Just the way I roll sometimes. All right, so let's get to the NFL, and and obviously we'll talk about Ben McAdoo and Jerry Reese. I didn't put that in the show description, but I thought that kind of fell in line with the headlines for this week. So so obviously we'll talk about that as well. So we'll talk about all that tonight. But let's first get to the on the field stuff, because that's obviously tremendously important. And, so from a wins-losses perspective, I think you look at this, there's a couple of, one of the narratives of the last couple of weeks was, we've seen a lot of teams go on 8-9 game winning streaks and kind of put some distance. We now know those teams that are at the top, that are in the mix, and those teams that are on the outside looking in. A few teams dropped off in the mixed category, and some teams solidified their standing. So, you have all that. That was kind of the given for this week. You started off the week with a big win by the Cowboys, which kept them alive, which pushed the Redskins probably out of the mix at this point. They're on the outside looking, so you take them off. Green Bay kind of kept their season alive, kept themselves in the mix with their big win. And look, Aaron Rodgers is practicing now, whether you think he should be or not. He is practicing, so who knows? We may keep themselves afloat long enough. Maybe they can sneak in here because they're not going to win the division. The Vikings have that well in hand, and that was a very significant game. It was an ugly game, but the Vikings got it done against the Falcons on the road, 14-9 for their 8th straight win. Case Keenum with a good game. Had jumped back into the mix, and they're still very much in the mix at 7-5. Don't go writing them off. They're in the mix. But the Vikings further solidified their position as a top-tier team in the NFL, and it was a big win because the Eagles lost, so they're now tied at the top. That's a very significant win. And if you look at the Vikings, here's the thing about the Vikings. Quietly, I mean, they're 5-1 on the road. So and the Falcons are 3-3 at home, which I thought was unimaginable. But the Vikings are not going to be fazed by being on the road either. And they're such a gritty, kind of defensive-oriented, running, grinding out team that I don't think they're going to be daunted by being on the road, which is kind of scary if you think about it because, first of all, if they get home field, that's obviously always tough to go play on the road, especially in an environment like Minnesota in late January. But here's the other thing. They're not going to be daunted by being on the road either. This is a team that's not going to be intimidated either way. They're either going to have home field and be an even tougher out, or they're going to be just as tough and out on the road. You can't win here with the Vikings because they win on games on the road. So, and in tough environments, mind you. So, no matter where you get the Vikings, they're going to be a tough out. That's the bottom line. In fact, I think there's something about them, and it's been a long time since I've seen a team like this. There's something about the Vikings where for some reason, when you watch them, it's like when they go on the road, they mentally prepare themselves to the point where they know what they're getting into. They know it. They have to be more. There has to be a more of a toughness. It's not like at home. You have to be mentally tough in any game. But when they go on the road, they have to prepare themselves. They know they have to be tougher. They know they have to be more grinded out. They have to be more physical, and they have to be more. They just seem to have this extra edge on the road. And you don't usually see that with a team. It's not like, and that's really what you're supposed to do. When you look at a road game, like, all right, I have to be on my game. I have to have more of an edge. I have to be tough because I'm going to hear it from the crowd. It's a hostile environment. That home team is going to give it to me a lot harder because this is their home environment, and that's what they're going to do. They're going to try to defend their home turf. So you're going to get it, and you have to prepare for that. You have to prepare for their best shot. So there is you have to have more of a mental toughness on the road, especially against a good football team. And that the Vikings do that, and that's what I think is the scariest quality about them is that. So it's a big win for them. Bills, all the air went out of that game. Tyrod Taylor got hurt. And look, the Patriots just took all the suspense out of it early. The Patriots, we know where they're at this point. They're 10-2. This is a solid win for them there. Titans kept themselves very much in play with their 24-13 win over the Texans. The Texans are firmly out now, I believe that. Dolphins kept themselves alive with a win over the Broncos. Chiefs just continue to fall apart. Jets with a huge 38-31 win to keep their season alive, keep themselves in the mix, although they're very barely in it. The Chiefs at this point, look, I think I talked about this last year a lot with the Bengals, and I said even if they make the playoffs, I would never, ever, 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 ever pick them to win a game in the playoffs because I just don't like the body language. I don't like the way they're going in. I don't like the way they're playing. This has been a tale of two completely different football teams where in the first half of the season, nobody could touch this team. We all thought they were primed for the Super Bowl. We thought they were the only elite team, and they've just fallen completely. This is more than just their usual midseason funk. This is just a team that's completely gone off the rails. The running game is just not enough. But in spots, it's even left them. In big situations, it's pretty much left them. Alex Smith did everything he could in that game against a good defense on Sunday, and they still lost. And everybody likes to blame Alex Smith. Alex Smith had 4 touchdowns and 366 yards passing and 70 yards rushing. The thing about the Chiefs is, when you thought about the Chiefs, you thought about defense and you thought about the running game. Well, their running game has left them in spots, and their defense gave up 38 points to a team where a team with a journeyman at quarterback. It's not Alex Smith's fault, all of it. He's had his bad weeks. But that's what you live with that with Alex Smith. And Alex Smith's supposed to be third on the totem pole of strengths of your team. Your team goes defense, running game, Alex Smith. That's the way it goes. Your defense ain't doing the job. Your running game is not doing enough of the job, and that's why you're losing football games. And now they are very, very close. They're now in a three-way tie at the top of the division with the Raiders and the Chargers. The Chargers, unexpected. Raiders, maybe not so much. So they're in a dogfight now, and this is going to be an interesting. Look, I would not be the least bit surprised to see them on the outside looking in come 3 weeks. I would not be the least bit surprised because of the way they're playing. It just doesn't look good psychologically. They just don't. They look confused. They look lost. They look like they're looking for answers. Not a good place to be in as you head into Week 14. Not a good place to be in. So, I don't like the way the Chiefs are playing. They're in it, obviously, but they're no longer even a top-tier team. They're just, Jaguars beat the Colts, handle business. They're obviously very much in the mix, tied at the top of the AFC South with the Tennessee Titans. So that's going to be an interesting race. Lions lose to the Ravens, who kept themselves firmly in the mix. And really, I'm making a nice play here late with a 7-5 record. Lions still there, but I think they're one more loss away from being completely out of it because, again, 6-6. And enough. Too many teams are in it. I just don't know, but right, they're there, but they're hanging on barely. We talked about the Raiders and the Chargers. They both handled their business against bad teams, the Browns and the Giants, and they're very much in play here now. Obviously, tied at the top of the division. One of the best games of the weekend, the Panthers and the Saints. A great game. Saints solidified themselves with a 31-21 win over the Panthers. Panthers obviously very much still in play. Saints solidified their position at the top of the NFL. Along with the Panthers, because they're one of the few teams that, even though they're not in the lead in their division, I still think you could consider a top team. And then the Eagles and the Seahawks were the nightcap. Well, Rams handled business too. They further solidified their position. Seahawks, Eagles was the nightcap. Great win for the Seahawks. Great defensive. Was a great defensive battle by both teams, and I really like the way the Seahawks played. Their vintage, physical, defensive, gritty self. Russell Wilson kept a lot of plays alive that he had no business keeping alive. He was a star in that game. Wentz was great. It just wasn't enough. And look, the Eagles were going to lose sometime. Okay, in a tough environment in Seattle, it's a good running experience for them. I like the way the Eagles played. They didn't give up. They were in it right to the end. So a big win for the Seahawks. Tough loss for the Eagles as they drop into a tie for the 1 seed in the NFC with the Vikings. Seahawks put themselves in a much better position here, and they're only a game out of the Rams for the division. And they're in good position here, and the Eagles obviously in very good position as well, but now tied at the top of the NFC. So a lot of big wins, some big losses. Bengals lost last night in a game that probably finishes them off. If you had any faint hope, they're out. Steelers solidify their position at 10-2, still tied with New England at the top of the AFC. We'll talk more about that game in a minute. Very physical game. If I didn't know about it, I was watching the Steelers and the Ravens that game. But we'll talk more about that in a few moments. Let's see. So I think I covered all the big highlight games. We'll talk. Well, hang on a second here. There it goes. All right. So those are some of the on-the-field big highlights. Obviously, there's some off-the-field highlights as well. Before we get to the picks, the Giants, McAdoo, Reese. I'm going to be very brief here because we've said it. I think everybody said it, and I think we've said it. This should have happened weeks ago. The fact that it happened after Eli lost the streak is kind of absurd. He lost the streak for no reason. It was dumb. It was stupid. The rationale for why – there was really no rationale presented for why it happened after last week. Trying to sell it like, oh, well, we're 2-10. Well, you've been bad for how many weeks now? This is not some new development. Just because you're 2-10. And honestly, they didn't play that badly on Sunday versus how they played. So, and Geno Smith going after Rex Ryan on the post game on Sunday was a joke too. I don't get that, but anyway, it's a decision that needed to be made. It's a decision that they're right. Why wait to the end of the season? I didn't understand a couple weeks ago when they said they were going to wait to the end of the season. There was no reason to wait to the end of the season. It was a toxic situation. You had to remove. I don't necessarily think they had to fire Jerry Reese at this point. They could have waited to the end of the season to do that. But maybe they want to get a start on things, get the GM in place now, and then and then kind of get the ball rolling on the head coach position. I can understand that. I mean, look, you're going to clean house. Why wait? I guess you only got what, 4 weeks left. So I mean, but McAdoo had to go. And a lot. And I know there's been. I know John Mara, who's a great man, and he's made some mistakes this year, very uncharacteristic of him and the Giants ownership. But one of the things he said is, well, Ben McAdoo's not arrogant. That's the way that was his persona with the media, and maybe he's not. But boy, look, if that wasn't his persona, representing himself in that way, he could have done, because it just, just the way he came off on Sunday. Oh, I'll keep coming to my key card don't work, and oh, I'm okay, everything's fine. Blah, blah. I mean, yeah, you're gonna say those things, but there was almost an era of like, I don't think they're gonna do this to me. Right down to the end, there was like a defiance to it, which really made it for some people even more satisfying. Which I thought, hey, you set it up like that. That's the bottom line. You set it up like that. That's the bottom line. So he made it so that nobody was going to feel bad for him in this firing, which again, it's not too surprising. So the right decision, probably about 4 weeks too late in my mind, or 3 weeks too late, at least in my mind, but whatever, it is what it is. Not much can be said about it. Giants have a lot of decisions to make. You're going back to Eli on Sunday. They kind of had to. It's a home game, and I guess a lot of former players will come wearing Eli's jersey. They kind of had no choice. They had to do that. So, we'll see what happens after the season. I think Eli's done with the Giants. I think he'll go elsewhere. I think they burned him. I think, and you can't blame him. And he comes out of this looking great, better than anybody, really, if you think about it. So, it is what it is. Giants have a lot of decisions to make. And one of them, look, the future quarterback is not on this team. It's not on this team, and that's why the whole thing was absurd from the beginning. Like, oh, we want to look at Geno Smith, none of these guys are going to be your quarterback. This is a quarterback heavy draft. Your quarterback's in the draft, or it's available via trade. If you're going to change quarterbacks, so why not just keep playing Eli? But regardless, the Giants move on. They got a lot of decisions to make. They'll just play out the string. I don't think they're going to be much of a spoiler, because they got a lot of injuries, and they're kind of, they look done. They can't really scare anybody. Can't really do a whole lot on offense. I don't think there'll be too much of a spoiler, but whatever. If they move on, we'll see what happens with them as they approach the offseason and beyond. Now to last night. And well, first let me bring him. Like I see Mike's there, and I might bring him in on this. I know he hates football, but this is something that's a little bit more broader terms. Mike, you're in the spotlight. I know you've been waiting, so go ahead and go off on me.
I hate football.
I know you hate football. I know you do.
Why do you think? Why do you think I'm gonna?
Well, because you're waiting
tonight, Brian.
You're waiting.
Well, yes, I was waiting, but for a long time. On time. I was here eating my dinner.
Well, unfortunately, and I think you noticed this, we have some weather issues tonight, so pretty bad issues. Yeah. So
I drove home. I drove home in it, Brian. I'm well aware of how the weather is reacting out in the world.
Oh, very good. Very good, Mike. So. Well, listen. Like I said, I want to bring you. Well, I figured, even though this is football, I'll bring you on this because last night, there were the Steelers and the Bengals played on Monday Night Football in a game, and I'm gonna hook all this into one so we can save some time. The physical nature of that game and why it's caused so much discussion. And also the suspensions that happened as a result of this game, in conjunction with what happened with Gronkowski on Sunday. So last night, look, if you've seen the Steelers play, and the kind of game you got last night, it's the kind of game you usually get when you get the Steelers and the Ravens in a game together. Hard hits, most of them legal, but hard hits. Last night there were some that weren't legal, okay, and they were called as such. All right. Thankfully, I think his name is Cesar, the guy that got hit in the back and couldn't I guess, move his legs or was having trouble moving his legs on the field. Thankfully, he's okay. He's able to move his legs. We're all very thankful for that. And he's going to be hospitalized, but it looks like there's no surgery or anything needed. So that's very, very good news there. But anyway, so again, some hits legal, some hits weren't. Smith-Schuster got a 1-game suspension. And then I think there was one other person that got a 1-game suspension. I can't seem to find their name. So, all right. So these guys got 1-game suspensions for late, hits that were just, I'm looking for the word here. Oh, for late hits, essentially. George Oyoka. He was a Bengals safety. He also got a hit suspension as well. So, all right. So, if you watch these hits, all right, they were your conventional, sorry about that. Conventional, like late hits, unnecessary roughness type hits. Okay. Now, they got 1-game suspensions. Contrast that with what Rob Gronkowski did on Sunday, where, again, I know there's a history there and all that other stuff, but after the play was over, he decided to essentially do what was a tantamount to a wrestling move or an assault move, and just throw himself into a defenseless player, concussing him, and he gets a 1-game suspension. Now, if you saw that clip, if you saw that play, which I imagine most of you did, you saw the Gronkowski hit, and you saw the hits that that Bengals safety, George Oka, and I'm going to call him, his first name's Juju, for the Steelers last night, got 1-game suspension for his hit as well. You look at those hits last night, they got 1-game suspension, and look at Gronkowski's hit on Sunday. It's absurd that hit by Gronkowski got the same punishment as the 2 hits last night. Those 2 guys last night, they got suspended for 1 game. That was fine. That's a 1-game suspension. Unnecessary roughness, late hit. They got fined. They got suspended. Their suspensions were upheld. That's fine. Totally, I don't have an issue with that. We said this before last night, that Gronkowski getting a 1-game suspension on Sunday what he did on Sunday was a complete and utter ridiculous. This is ridiculous. It was basically assault. You can cuss the guy, and then I love how afterwards we go, oh wow, by we I mean Gronkowski. Oh, I'm sorry. It was embarrassment. It was an embarrassing thing for me to do. I was wrong. I hate that I did it. I'm embarrassed that I did it. That basically super remorseful, apologetic. And Gronkowski's usually a big goofball and everything. So people are like, he's being genuine, whatever. So he gets the 1-game suspension, which is just ridiculous, on Monday. He gets the fine, and basically he said, so he appeals the suspension. So if you're that apologetic, and you're that sorry, you don't appeal a 1-game suspension. You got off easy with a 1-game suspension and a fine, and you're still going to go ahead and appeal the damn thing. And then last night, the NFL makes it worse, because that's what they like to do. They punish, they handle punishments, they handle everything the wrong way. But they make things worse because they always do something which, when you compare it to the first mistake, makes it even look worse. You got 2 hits last night, which were rightfully called penalties and everything, and now and the right punishments issued today. Okay, so you get, okay, the NFL got it right. They punished the right way. But then you look at what Gronkowski, and you're like, wait a minute. These guys got the same as him? These guys got the same as him. Now, by the way, they upheld Gronkowski's 1-game suspension, even though he appealed it. Okay, so they upheld that, which they had to do, I imagine. But then you look at it and go, wait, he got suspended for the same thing? Same amount of time? For that? We've said it on the show before, going back to the Tom Brady thing. Tom Brady getting what he got for the Deflategate versus what so many others didn't get for domestic violence, or similar for what they did for domestic violence. This league there is a major. We can talk about the behavior of the players and how disturbing it is, because it's very disturbing. How somebody that's classified as a goofball that is entertaining and that nobody thinks has a bad bone in his body because he's always funny and he's always theatrical. How somebody could all of a sudden snap and lunge himself into a defenseless player on the ground, no matter what kind of instigation he caused. That's disturbing. Okay, we can talk about those kind of things, how disturbing the behavior is, and how that how the NFL's it has an image issue and all that stuff, and the players cause all these problems, and it's all these other controversies. We can talk about all that out to the end of the time here. But one thing that we talked about that I don't think we talk about enough, ironically enough, even though we have talked about it, is the fact that this league has a freaking logic problem. I don't know what the hell they look at. I don't know what the hell they're thinking. I have no clue how you can look at what happened on Sunday, and then look at what those two players did last night, and give them all the same suspension. Whoever the disciplinary policies in this league, the way that they discipline, and the one thing they always throw at you, okay, the one thing they always throw at you is this. Well, we have to discipline in a way that we can defend, because we want it when they appeal, because they are going to always appeal, no matter how apologetic they are, no matter how right they say you are. They're always going to appeal it. Whether the union does or they do, they're always going to appeal it, right? So the league's like, well, we have to be able to defend it. So sometimes we can't do what we want to do. You freaking morons, okay? You're freaking morons, because here's the thing: okay, I understand that you feel like you have to do something that you can defend, but when you go in with a lower penalty than deserved, okay, you're setting yourself up for failure. Now, look, okay, you go in with one game. Well, they're going to appeal the one game. They're going to appeal the one game because it's one game. My whole thing is this: if you think of punishment, okay, let's say look at the Gronkowski thing. I'm going to say, okay, most people thought he deserved like a 4-game suspension the last month of the season, right? Okay, so you go in there with 4 games, because if he appeals it, chances are, if they uphold it, you'll at least get 2 games. They'll at least cut it in half. So at least he gets half of what he should have gotten. Instead, you go in there with 1 game, he doesn't get anywhere close to what he should have gotten. The whole point of a punishment and disciplinary action is to make the player think before he acts, to discourage the player from committing that act. How in the freaking world does this discourage players from acting like that? If anything, it's like, well, geez, if I make a mistake, I'm going to get off easy. They'll give me a fine. I'll get a 1 game and whatever, and I'll walk away. That does nothing. This league is a travesty. It's a joke. It's disgusting. They have no moral compass at all. And now, the whole idea, and this has been going on with concussions and everything. We know that people, that's one of the biggest reasons they're turning off the TVs or backing away from the game entirely. It's the physical nature of it. People are worried about concussions. They're worried about their kids getting hurt. They're worried about their kids picking up things off TV, watching the NFL players, all these kind of things. We know that. And watching last night, you had half the audience saying this is the way football used to be, and they had half the audience that's like, boy, that's the reason why I think football needs fundamental change. Last night was the embodiment of it. It was totally that kind of game, because I mean, in addition to the fact that, well, people have been saying all year, well, in one of the games to turn the TV off, the games are longer now, which is funny because the games are no longer than they used to be. It's just coming just like baseball. Oh, the games go on forever, and there's too many flags and all this other stuff, and replay. And I get that. Make some points. You make some points. So there's that whole argument too, as to why people are turning away from it, in addition to the controversies and all that other stuff. But the physical nature was on display last night. Late hits, guys getting carted off the field. This ugly physical game last night. And it was for some disturbing, and for some, well, this is the way football used to be played. This is why ratings are down. You know, people want this game. Pure football fans want this kind of game. You know, less rules. You know, hard hitting action. You don't play football unless you want to get hit. You know, if you're a football player, you're told to hit. This is the way it's supposed to be. This is the way the game's supposed to be. You heard that side, and you heard the other side. This is the reason this game has a major fundamental problem, and it needs to change. And as I said in the open, eventually we're gonna have to do a special segment on this. We can't do it justice tonight because it's a very derisive issue, and it's an issue that I think is gonna lead 10 years from now. I think the sport of football is gonna be completely different than it is now. Because I think the people that are on the side of wanting it to be more like last night, more physical, you know, less rules dominating the game, that kind of thing, are going to be sorely disappointed because there's no way that this league can do that. There's just too many people that are turned off to it with the concussion situation, and you can understand why. I understand why. It's a very difficult thing. The NFL, the sport of football in general, is at a crossroads. It really is, because they have to decide the direction they're going to go in. Because you have to start training kids now what the current way to play this game is. How do you want this game to be played 10 years from now? Do you want it to be what it was, or some variation of what it was? Or do you want to continue down this path, more rules, less physical, more protected? What's the way to go here? Because I don't think anybody has the answer. And last night, that was, you know, I think it showed you how derisive it is of an issue. In addition to the absurdity of the punishments of the last couple of days. But, so, for me, last night was a perfect example of what I think, forget about the NFL. It's not just an NFL issue. It's a general football issue. Last night embodied that. Where you had half the audience like, oh my God, I haven't seen a game like this in a long, long time. This was great. This was football, the NFL back to the way it used to be. And then you had half the audience that was appalled and turned off their television sets and said, this is the reason why this game needs to change. Or can't be this way. It was a perfect embodiment of it last night. So, Mike, you hate football. I know you do. You hate it. Fair point. You can hate it. A lot of people do now. You're no longer in the minority on that. So I don't think you can really speak to the physical nature of last night, but I'm sure you can speak to the absurdity of the punishment comparison that's gone on the last 2 days.
Could.
I thought I was setting you up for a rant how Gronkowski can get one game, and guys that did a traditional late hit can get one game too.
In essence, think about it. What Gronkowski did was still a late hit. Even though the play was already over, he was down. It was after the play, you know, after. And you could still call what Gronkowski did a late hit. But Gronkowski should have just shut his fucking mouth. But no, he appealed it. Guys who got called for a late hit. And the fact is, while I'm sitting here arguing the fact that what Gronkowski did could be considered a late hit, it was still after the ball was down. It was still a deplorable action. He can cost a guy for no reason. It's tantamount to assault. Or saying that after the play. Look, Gronkowski should have gotten at minimum two to 4 games. Oh, my issue is, yeah, Gronkowski should have gotten 2 to 4 games. 4 games maximum is what Ray Rice got for beating his wife. Is this equal to that? not. The disciplinary rules in the NFL. I mean, that's just the long and the short. Like, yes, we were complaining about late hits and the aggression and people being carted off the field. And by the way, guy after that hit, he grabbed his back and he knew it was hurt. That guy has feeling and today.
Yes.
Is a damned miracle.
Yes.
Get that out of the way. The fact that guy will in fact walk and probably play again is a miracle. And look, it's like, oh, we haven't seen that much aggression and hard hitting in years and ages. And I'm like, no. We know what the league was. And I still found it boring, but yeah, it was hard hitting. There was less rules, yes. But then again, proven that was not good for the human condition. Now, was it? CTE is a thing. Give a shit if you, the fan, don't like the current game and the way it's played. Science came out. Individuals came out and showed the way football at the professional level and all levels really has been played is a danger who play it. Yes, Brian, you got a notification from ESPN. You should look at it.
I did. Well, thank you.
I mean, look. Like, oh, well, I missed the way the game was played. I missed all the aggression. Look. Free. Watch old games on the NFL Network. You are free to do that. Here, the game of football and all of its rules, unions, and all of its ownership needs to evolve. For the love of God, to evolve. Because the way football was played before resulted in many of the old guard and football with traumatic brain injuries to go along with the mountains of other injuries they've accumulated over their career. But traumatic brain injuries, 40, when they're 50 and they can't play anymore. They have the brain of a 90-year-old with Alzheimer's, with dementia. Mm-hmm. There is a legitimate issue with that. Issue with their attitude. And look, I have an issue with many of these players off the field. Their behavior, the way they represent themselves there and their teams. With that. C. Rice, Ray. I have an issue with the fact that a lot of these NFL players come off the field and act entitled.
Right.
Pieces of shit around them. This isn't all of them. But you always hear the bad more than the good. I have an issue with them kneeling. I'm pretty sure I've gone on record and saying no, it's a good thing. It's a peaceful protest. If that is your issue, you need to reevaluate you. It is a harmless, peaceful protest. The inequality African Americans and other minorities face from law enforcement, from politicians, and from every aspect of life. If your issue is them peacefully kneeling, then you need to reevaluate yourself and figure out, why am I so, and I'm just going to say it now, why am I so fucking racist? It's not a defend the troops thing. the troops go for these individuals to kneel and the Constitution abroad. And when Nazis and the Ku Klux Klan have your side, probably reevaluate your side. And that's all I'm going to say about the kneeling thing. I brought it up again because it kind of speaks to the issue. Well, speaks to the overarching issue with the over NFL. It's a problem. I like Gronkowski. I know you did too, to an extent. He was an entertaining guy. Title, A Gronking to Remember, is the funniest freaking thing in the last 5 years in terms of book titles. Equal to A Gronking to Remember. It was hilarious. However, Rob Gronkowski's actions were as shit. And the fact that he got the same punishment guys who had a late hit is a little embarrassing. And whoever is the disciplinarian, NFL needs to fucking just retire. And you need stricter rules. I'm sorry. You just need stricter rules. You need to reevaluate these rules. Because one game for that stupid shit he pulled, and the fine was dumb. He should have gotten 4.
Mm-hmm.
At least 4. But he wasn't, because and Brian, I mentioned this last night.
Yeah.
One game. Then it was upheld as it should have been. It should have been more. In one game later. But the game after is the Steelers.
Yeah. Right.
And this is the biggest problem with the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Rob Gronkowski is a money maker on a team of money makers. He brings in eyes, he brings in revenue. And the Patriots, one of the Patriots' biggest rivals are the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's play, but the game after, and suddenly Rob Gronkowski is going to be available for that game. What are the odds?
Mm-hmm.
Rob Gronkowski should have been out for the rest of the season. He's not, but he should have been. But he's not. Here we are with football.
Yep.
It's the NFL in and of itself. Giant dumpster fire. And they need to put out that dumpster fire. They can make changes. And Goodell should be the first change they make.
Oh, yeah.
Dudes of the owners. The next change they make. Or if their attitudes cannot be to, let's say, the 21st century, probably should be replaced. Face it. At the heart of all of this, it's always a money issue. It's always going to be a money issue because in the end, the NFL is a business and they're going to do what's best, even when what's best is them growing a goddamn spine and implementing actual decent rules. That's all I'm going to say.
You're not wrong. All right, so we talked about the issues. As far as picks go, last week I went 2-4. Only 2 I got right were the Patriots over the Bills, the Vikings over the Falcons. I got wrong the Redskins over the Cowboys, the Lions over the Ravens, Panthers over the Saints, and the Eagles over the Seahawks. So 2-4, one of my worst weeks in a while. While as you look at Week 14, there are a lot of big games that are going to have significance. We can start with the Thursday night game, 8:25 p.m. Eastern on NBC, the 9-3 Saints at the 7-5 Falcons. A big game for the Falcons. I think it's a must-win to kind of keep themselves in the mix here, whether they're going for the division or the wild card. The division is probably a faint hope at this point with so few games left. After seeing what New Orleans did against Carolina last week, I feel good about them even on the road. They're 4-2 on the road. I like the Saints. The Saints are just so much better. Their defense is much improved. We know they can get the job done offensively. I like the Saints here over the Falcons. That's an easy game to call. Another big game I'm going to pick here. 1 o'clock Eastern game on CBS from Arrowhead in Kansas City. The 6-6 Raiders at the 6-6 Chiefs. Both teams going in opposite directions. The Raiders have turned it on of late. They're playing much better. Derek Carr is healthy. Teams kind of coming together. Coming the Raider team we expected to see early in the season. Chiefs have fallen completely off. We talked about them earlier. They're at home, but home hasn't helped them much this year. I like the Raiders to win this game. I just do. Again, the defense of the Chiefs is not doing their job. Running wise, not doing their job consistently enough. And the Raiders are really just playing better in all facets. The Raiders play the way they've done the last couple of weeks, despite the fact they've struggled on the road this year. But again, they're kind of a different team now. But if the Raiders do what they've done, I like the Raiders here, and I think the Raiders are the better. I think we all thought the Raiders were the better team, or at least one of those elite teams going into the season. They just look like they're becoming that now. Raiders over Chiefs for me in this game. Big game here between the Vikings and the Panthers. A 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern game on CBS from Charlotte, Carolina. 10-2 Vikings at the 8-4 Panthers. Panthers coming off a tough loss to the Saints. Have not got the job done really at home. Only 3-2 at home. Meanwhile, we talked about the Vikings earlier. They've done very well on the road. 5-1 on the road. They are tied for at top of the NFC at 10-2. We know, again, road games don't scare them. They're mentally tough enough. They're a gritty, defensive, run it, grind it out kind of team. Keenum keeps them in games, just does enough, but plays it very fundamentally sound, plays it safe, does just enough to get the job done. I like the Vikings here. It's going to be tough for the Panthers to have the Saints and the Vikings back to back. Panthers are going to be a good team. We know that they're going to keep themselves in this, but the Vikings, Panthers rely heavily on making a team uncomfortable, being physical with them, just shutting their offense down and making you have to grind it out, and that's the Vikings' strength. That's not going to bother them. A low-scoring game does not bother Minnesota. Vikings over Panthers is my pick in that game. Eagles and Rams. 4:25 p.m. Eastern on Fox from LA. 10-2 Eagles at the 9-3 Rams. Rams done okay at home. Eagles have done okay on the road. Both have identical records, home and away, 4-2. Eagles are coming off a loss in which they didn't play badly. They didn't play badly. They were in it all the way to the end, even though the score doesn't indicate that. They kept going for it. Rams have obviously done a lot, have done a lot on offense, but they've really surprised people by how well they played defensively. To me, this is a pick 'em. I think the Rams are like a 2-point favorite. I like the Eagles here because I think coming off a loss, they're gonna be really, I think they're gonna feel like in a way their backs are against the wall. I think they feel like they have to win out with the way the Vikings are playing to keep up their top NFC spot. So when you consider that, I think the Eagles are going to play with an extra chip on their shoulder coming off last week. They think people might feel differently about them. Plus, again, I think they feel like they have to win out. They want to get that top NFC spot. They're going to consider this and all the rest of their games in the regular season probably must win. So with that in mind, I like my dog to stop barking. That would be a good start. I like the Eagles to beat the Rams. And essentially a pick 'em game because you can go either way with that game. And then, let's see, I'm not going to pick the Monday night game because even though it's at Miami, and sometimes they have a tendency to beat New England at Miami, I don't see it. It's New England in December. They're tough to beat, so I'm not going to pick that game. Let's see. It's either I pick Ravens, Steelers, or Giants, Cowboys. I'll go with Ravens, Steelers. I think that's going to be more of a game. 8:30 p.m. Eastern on NBC from Pittsburgh, PA, Heinz Field, 7-5 Ravens at the 10-2 Steelers. Steelers have been very good at home, 4-1. Ravens not so good on the road, 3-3, but not bad. 500 on the road's not bad. It's about, that's about the limit you want to be. We talked about how the last night's Bengals-Steelers game was kind of like a Ravens-Steelers game. Well, here you go, Ravens-Steelers. Ravens have quietly stuck back into the race. They're very much in the mix. Steelers have dominated. You expect, look, the Ravens every week has been for the most part this year, you don't know what you're going to get week to week with them. You know, lately they've been pretty good. They've gotten the job done, but for the most part, in the early part of the season, it was week to week. You didn't know what you're going to get. Steelers, you know, every week you're going to get their offense for the most part. Defensively, you don't know what you're really going to get week to week. That's always been the problem with them. It should be a close, physical, maybe a lower scoring game than the Steelers usually like. But I think the Steelers have way too many weapons, and you can't focus on any one thing with the Steelers offense. They can run the ball and they can pass the ball. Offensively, they're just a tough matchup for any team. I also don't know if the Ravens' defense is good enough. I mean, not what they used to be. So I like the Steelers here over the Ravens. So one more game to pick. I'm gonna pick the Seahawks and the Jags. Only because it's a home game for Jacksonville, and I think it'll be much more interesting than the Giants and Cowboys. I think that's going to end up being a blowout with the Cowboys winning. 4:25 p.m. Eastern on Fox from Jacksonville, Florida. 8-4 Seahawks at the 8-4 Jaguars. Who would have thought Jacksonville and Seattle would have identical records? Seattle hasn't been bad on the road, 4-2. Jacksonville has been 4-2 at home, not too bad. Russell Wilson, Seattle and Russell Wilson on a little bit of a roll, got some good momentum since they're coming off their big win against the Eagles, but now they're on the road. And we've said over the years, no matter how good Seattle might come in into a game, if they're on the road, they're not the same team. Jacksonville has played very well this year, but this is a different opponent. This is a bigger opponent. They haven't played too many of these kind of teams, you know, physical teams that on defense are going to make you try to grind it out, make it tough for you to score. Jacksonville likes to go wide. Likes to go all out on offense, and you know it's not going to be easy for them to do that. And defensively, Seahawks are going to be a little bit of a tough matchup for them because they take what you give to them. They're not going to force it. So I like Seattle here. I think this is a tough matchup, but I think Jacksonville is good enough to keep this a close game. I don't think it's going to be any way, shape, or form a blowout here, but I don't like the Jags in this game. I think the Seahawks is a tough matchup. So Seahawks over Jags. So my picks for week 14 of the NFL season: Saints over Falcons, Raiders over Chiefs, Vikings over Panthers, Eagles over Ravens, Eagles over Rams. I'm sorry, Steelers over Ravens, and Seahawks over Jaguars. The other game I was going to pick was Cowboys Giants. Like I said, I think that's going to be a blowout. That's why I didn't pick. I try to pick the closer games. Again, I think the Cowboys will probably dominate that one. Even though it's on the road, so I'm not going to pick that one. But again, if I had my pick, it'd be Cowboys over Giants, big time. But anyway, unless they somehow feel inspired with Eli Manning back and Ben McAdoo out, but those are my picks for NFL Week 14. That's all the NFL stuff. We got through it. It's done. It's over with. We got college football to talk about, but first I'm going to go to college basketball first, because I want to kind of try to break things up a little bit tonight and all that. And it was a big week in college basketball. Tonight you had, again, we talked about the Jimmy V Classic. You were Villanova with a big win over Gonzaga. Syracuse up right now on Connecticut. I think it's 17 right now, Mike. I'm trying to see the score. I got DVR in the room, but I'm sorry, it's 11. They're up 11, so 40-29. Syracuse at the half. Villanova beat Gonzaga earlier tonight, 88-72. A lot of big games tonight. Let's see. Villanova beat Gonzaga, which I know pleases you, Mike. Huh?
Apparently, of course it does.
Hang on just a sec.
Sure. Apparently, I saw on Twitter while I was at work that Gonzaga fans were rather upset with Jay Billis. Like, we know you like Villanova more than you like all of the West Coast teams. Well, there's a damn good reason for that. Because Villanova is better than all of those West Coast teams. Villanova came out, they asserted dominance. They came out to a hot start in the first half. Gonzaga tried to make it a game. They pretty much came rather close. And the second half, by rather close, I mean Villanova still outscored them, but they outscored them by slightly less. is.
By the way, there's a player that made a name for himself. You know how the Garden can make, we said this used to be during the Big East tournament. It could really raise your stock. It's a big stage, and I know it's Jimmy V Classic is a big stage. Mikal Bridges, tonight. People focus on Brunson. Villanova's got a lot of top tier players. Mikal Bridges tonight made a name for himself. That guy probably, for right now, at this moment, would probably be a top 10 draft pick. He was phenomenal tonight. Absolutely phenomenal. He was first of all, he was the best player on the floor tonight. It was just a phenomenal performance. He had a dunk in that game that was ridiculous. His defense. Here's the thing Villanova's not getting enough credit for. Okay? And Mike knows one of my criticisms going back, I think 8-9 years with Villanova was that they didn't play good defense. They would foul. That was their defense. They'd reach, they'd leave their feet. They weren't very skilled defensively. The last 3 years under Jay Wright, particularly their national championship, but their last 3 years, their defense has been so underrated, it's ridiculous. Their defense is phenomenal. And it's the solid on the ball defense. And tonight, now they got great post defense now. Mikal, he was fantastic. You could not get in the paint on Villanova tonight unless there was a complete and utter blow up defensively on assignment. There's just nowhere to go. Their guards are phenomenal on the ball defenders. They stay with their man. The refereeing in the game tonight was a little bit, there were some calls for both sides that I thought were just, let them play defense. But we could make that argument for most of the games nowadays, I suppose. But Villanova is look, Gonzaga being at number 12 was ridiculous anyway. But, and we all knew Villanova was a much better team than Gonzaga. I don't think that was ever in question. But to give Gonzaga credit for keeping it as close as they did. Nonetheless, it's a good win for Villanova. It comes in as a top 15 win. So
as of right now, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
So, and Gonzaga's going to always be over. And I don't mean to go against Gonzaga. I like Mark Few. I like the program, but they're always overrated. So it's going to look good for Villanova all year having that win anyway. But it was an impressive win. A very impressive win. And then, like I said, there's been a lot of big games tonight. Right now, a couple games ongoing. Nebraska's beating. Remember, Big Ten started their conference this week because of the whole thing with the tournament and everything. Nebraska's beating Minnesota 56-43. That's number 14 Minnesota, mind you. This Big Ten conference keeps giving, doesn't it? Yeah. Right now, Texas A&M, who I'm going to admit I might have been a little. I might have underestimated a little bit. I still don't think they're a top 10 team, but I might have underestimated them a little bit. They're up 53-52 on Arizona. This game on ESPN2 with 5 minutes left. Arizona's just fallen completely off. They can't score, which is interesting. And here's an upset for you, Mike. I don't know if you saw this.
Well, hold on. You brushed right past it.
Okay.
Arizona can't score, but as of right now, neither can Texas A&M. And Texas A&M is considered the 7th ranked team in the country. So Texas A&M has got their scoring problems tonight too. Arizona is very much in this game.
Right. And I should point out too that Texas A&M, I think we saw this last night. Remember the whole idea that they're holding opponents to the lowest field goal percentage in college basketball. So on Division I. So, but that's not always a good statistic. We've seen that in the tournament.
It doesn't help when you can't score as well.
Yeah, that doesn't help. But here's an upset for you. The big one of the night. Number 9 Notre Dame lost tonight to Ball State, 80-77.
Well, it was a 3-point loss for Notre Dame. It could be worse, but
it's pretty big for Ball State.
Huge for Ball State.
Big night.
So it's top 10 win for the program.
Now, if somehow Ball State was to, let's say they make the tournament, win their conference tournament or something like that, that kind of game could help your seeding when they place you.
Yeah.
But hey,
they might put you as a 12 or an 11 instead of the 14 or a 15.
Hey, and if you can get into that 12 game, that gives you a little bit of a confidence boost, a little bit, knowing that you beat a top 10 team. So
as the 12 seed, they're putting you against a top 25 team they think is vulnerable.
Right. Exactly. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Texas Tech beat number 22 Nevada in overtime 82-76, which again, Nevada is going to be one of those teams to keep an eye on for the tournament. West Virginia beat Virginia. Number 18 West Virginia beat number 15 Virginia 68-61. Not surprising. West Virginia is the better team.
Good.
Despite
Fuck
their early struggles.
Fuck Virginia, those fucking scrubs.
I'm like the Virginia hater. No offense to anybody, but he is. And again, Syracuse up on UConn 40-29 at the half. A couple other big games from the past week. I'm not going to talk about every one of them. We don't have the time. By the way, it's good to see Matthew Moyer has shown up tonight.
I guess so.
Finally.
They happened yesterday. Unranked Florida State.
Yep.
Number 5, Florida.
Yeah. That was a huge game. For two reasons. One, it proves that we all underestimated Florida State. Big time. And two, it goes to show you that I think Jay Billis said this on the weekend. I think I agree with him. We fell in love with Florida. We saw what they did to Duke and we saw what they could do offensively, but we haven't seen what they can do defensively. They haven't been able to shut down a team yet. That's the thing. They've scored and they've impressed us with their scoring and their talent, but we haven't seen them defensively shut it down yet. And that's the thing. If they can play better defense, they're going to be a lot better. That's been their problem so far. And you saw it in this game. They gave up 83 points to a team that many of us say year in and year out. Because the one thing we can say about Florida State year in and year out is they're not usually a high-scoring team. So you give up over 60 points to Florida State, that's usually not a good sign. But that was a big win, you're right, for Florida State. That was a big game. I'm just trying to see if there's anything else. Michigan State had a pretty good week, but nothing notable I don't see. Seton Hall beat Louisville 79-77. The big win for Seton Hall. Had a little bit of an early struggle. I'm telling you, I said it all year. I don't think Louisville is going to be scaring many teams this year. I really don't. They're going to be a tournament team, but they're not going to scare you. Alabama lost to UCF, but Alabama's a team that was already overrated to begin with. So, so go figure. They're not like they are in college football. Maybe just put it to you that way.
I don't even want to talk about Alabama.
Yeah. Kansas beat Syracuse on Saturday.
Especially if they fucking elect.
Yeah.
Shit. But especially if Alabama elects Roy, we'll not talk about Alabama. I'm sorry. Alabama will be dead to me if they elect that fucking pedophile.
Let's see. Kansas, Syracuse. Kansas beat Syracuse would have been in that game if they had a better first half. They only scored 21 points in the first half. That was their undoing. They just couldn't score in the first half. Wichita State beat Baylor, Wichita State's just a better team. Not much to say there. Cincinnati Xavier, always a fun game. Physical, a lot of history there, and there was a little bit of, stuff with Mick Cronin and what going on a player and all that stuff. And Xavier wins that game 89-6. Xavier's a really good basketball team. Cincinnati is too. They're both going to factor into some things in March. But, a little bit of ugliness there. You just wish that you really wish cooler heads would prevail sometimes. But USC had a bad week. They lost to SMU. They've kind of been struggling. So maybe we all overranked them, including myself. I thought they're going to be one of the best teams in the Pac-12, which isn't saying much, but still. Let's see what else. I don't think there's anything after Friday, but let me just see, make sure I didn't miss anything. North Carolina, Davidson. Gonzaga beat Creighton. Nothing notable there. I told you Davidson would give them a game. They only lost by 10 to North Carolina. Michigan State beat Notre Dame last Thursday in the Big Ten ACC. It's the ACC dominated, by the way. Totally dominated. So Notre Dame hasn't had the best week. Let's just say that out loud. Seton Hall beat Texas. Seton Hall had a good week. Texas Tech, Louisville. They got some good wins And let's see, Duke beat Indiana Wednesday night. Miami beat Minnesota. North Carolina beat Michigan. I think that's it. That gets us to Tuesday. So some big games, some big developments. I think Florida State had a good. Florida State put a lot of people on notice. I thought I think Villanova and Michigan State both had good weeks. They need to kind of solidify themselves a little bit. Let's see. Wichita State, I thought, had a good week. Obviously, Ball State with the big win tonight. So a couple of big headlines in there. And we'll see what happens tonight against Syracuse UConn right now on ESPN in part 2 of the Jimmy V Classic, 40-29 Syracuse. We'll keep you up to date on that, along with all the other big games. Arizona still going on with Texas A&M, Minnesota, Nebraska, which looks like it's going to be a big win for Nebraska, up 63-46. So not much of a game there. So we'll keep you updated on all that while we're on the air here. Again, it's been a big week in college basketball, and things are going to, after this week, things will settle down a little bit for a few weeks. Because obviously Big Ten's got conference play started, but once you start getting towards Christmas, it settles down for college basketball until after New Year's, because the stage goes to college football and the end of the NFL season and that kind of thing. This is the way it goes. College basketball's had a nice little first month. So a lot of big things and stuff. That's the way it usually works now. So, but we all know how this cycle works. It's the way it goes. Really quickly, because I said I'm mixing things up tonight. Before we get to the baseball and then the wrestling, let me quickly mention, because I'm not going to do a long segment on it. We've done a lot of college football in the last few weeks as we approach the playoffs. And I'm not going to do a long segment because really it speaks for itself. I think everybody knows what this came down to. Oklahoma and Clemson solidified their position with their performances on Saturday. They got their spots. Georgia winning. Look, once Georgia won, Auburn was out, and then it obviously opened the potential door for Alabama in a way from a competitive standpoint, but you still needed Wisconsin to lose to really firmly open the door. And once Wisconsin lost, look, I know what people are saying of Ohio State. They won their conference, the championship, and all that. I understand that, and you can make the argument that should count for something. But the problem here is this: when you make a selection committee, and we know this from time to time in college basketball, college football no way correlates to college basketball. We all know that they have their issues. But Alabama played the better schedule. Alabama had one loss versus Ohio State's 2 losses. Alabama's one loss came to a team that was the hottest team in college football and was in its conference championship game. Alabama did not lose to an Iowa team like Ohio State did in the same vein, giving up 55 points. Okay, if Ohio State does not lose to Iowa, if they win that game, and it's one loss versus one loss, Ohio State makes it. Because Ohio State did play more big games, but they had a bad loss, which Alabama did not have. Alabama played in the better conference. They didn't play as many ranked opponents, but they played in the better conference in terms of like what you have to deal with week to week. But Ohio State, I think, probably played the better non-conference. So that makes it a little bit different. So you can kind of negate those two there. But really the difference was this. Ohio State lost to a bad team badly. Alabama didn't have a bad loss. That's the reason why it happened. Point blank. Do I think they got it right? Yes. Do I wish it wasn't Alabama because I'm sick of it? Yes. Do I hate the fact that 2 SEC teams are in the top 4? Yes. But what are you going to do? I think they got it right by their standards, and that's the way you go. You move on. You get Clemson, Alabama, part 2,862. This time in the semifinal. It'll be a good game. I expect it to be a close game. I'd probably give the edge to Clemson right now because I think they're playing better, but who knows? Alabama, Clemson, not to knock my hometown team, but Clemson also lost to Syracuse, so who knows? And then you got Georgia and you got Oklahoma. I'd probably favor Oklahoma there, but Georgia's got a good defense. So we'll see. We'll talk more about that as we get closer. But selection-wise and ranking-wise, I think they did good. I think they set up a lot of good matches, especially in the bowl games, and I think you'll have a good New Year's Day. That's all I can really say. Everything that's been said's been said, and really, to me, it was pretty easy. To me, there was no controversy. Once it came down, once you saw the win-loss results, and once it came down to Ohio State versus Alabama, Alabama doesn't have a bad loss. Ohio State does, and they had one more loss to begin with. So, to me, that makes it simple. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So we'll talk more about the college football playoffs and all the bowl games as we get closer to that event at the end of the month. We'll preview them and do all that kind of stuff. I just wanted to briefly mention it because I didn't think it was worthy of a full, long, drawn-out discussion. Also, Tiger Woods. Let's bring that up real quick. I'm not – again, it's going to be like a minute here on this. He had a good weekend, and it's a start. You know, you like the way he drove the ball very well. Putt-wise, you know, wasn't always easy for him. Was a little bit of a struggle, but that's going to happen, folks. That's going to happen because that's the thing that takes you a while to get back. You got to get a feel for it again, and it's going to take some time. And look, if he stays healthy and improves week to week, by the time he gets to the Masters, I would anticipate that it'll be a, you know, he'll be in good shape. I don't know if he'll win it, but he'll be in good shape. He just has to stay healthy. That's just the bottom line. But it's a good start. That's about all you can really say. Couple quick baseball topics before we throw the wrestling. And I put these in the show description. And again, they're not going to be long, drawn out things. The Aaron Boone hiring. I think I said this on the show. I don't know if I did, but but if I didn't, I really thought he was the best guy for the job. I could see the merits of Beltran, but I don't think he's removed from the game enough. I think Beltran. Look, I know people are going to say, well, wait a minute, Aaron Boone hasn't coached, Aaron Boone hasn't managed, but Aaron Boone has been out of the game since 2010. He's been in the booth. He's asked questions. He's been in the games. His family's like baseball royalty, okay? They've been in the game forever, and he's lived the game. He's been around the game his whole life, and he's been in the booth, and he's been analyzing. I don't have an issue. I think that makes up for the experience. I think he knows the game. He's always demonstrated that. So I don't worry about that. But with Carlos Beltran, even though he's kind of been a mentor to a lot of guys and already been an unofficial hitting instructor, I still don't think I think that you want to see him remove from the game a little bit, maybe have a couple years. I mean, even if he was a broadcast for a couple years, I would buy into Beltran. And I know people go like, well, the broadcast doesn't prepare you to manage. I know it doesn't. But at least you could say that he's kind of taken some time to kind of learn some things that he might not be so well versed on. I don't think he's nearly ready to take on that job. I'm glad they gave him the interview. Hopefully they make him a coach or something, because I think he could be a value in that way. But to me, the best guy for the job all along was Aaron Boone, unless they brought David Cohn or John Flaherty, and them two I thought could be good too. But Aaron Boone I thought was the best of the guys they considered. I saw merits in all the other guys, but I thought he was the best guy, so I'm glad they hired him. I think he's going to be good. I think he knows the game. He's analytical, but I also think he's a good communicator. I also think he has a good instinct. He's lived the game, been around the game, and I think that makes up for any experience deficiencies that he has. I think he's going to do a really good job, so I think that was a good hire. On the flip side, the other big baseball story was Shohei Otani, who, if you've been following baseball, it was really just a matter of whether he got posted, which, you know, we found out it was early last week or 2 weeks ago that he was. And then once that happened, it was like, well, the favorite's the Yankees. Everybody thought it was a foregone conclusion. The Yankees had the money, whatever. Remember, this guy's only going to make $3.5 million. It's like, well, the Yankees had the international assignment. They're going to get this done. Well, Mr. Otani swerved everybody on Sunday or over the weekend when he said that he wasn't going to go to the Yankees. He wasn't going to go to the Red Sox. He wasn't going to go to the Mets. He eliminated 22 out of 30 teams and basically left teams like the Anaheim Angels, the LA Dodgers, the Chicago Cubs, the Seattle Mariners, the San Diego Padres. I could go on, but I'm not going to. He shocked everybody with this. It's interesting that it was said that he prefers the West Coast and he prefers a smaller market when he left Chicago on there, which is a big market, probably the second biggest market. And he's also left the LA Dodgers on there. Now, Anaheim I can buy because Anaheim's removed from LA. It's like in a suburb of LA. I can buy that. But LA, not necessarily a small market. Now, it's on the West Coast, so I can buy it from that standpoint. So it's real odd that those two teams are on it. It's also odd that he made all the major league teams go through this whole process of this whole like questionnaire thing that they had to fill out, or like presentations, and what they had to fill out this thing telling them how they would develop, how they develop players, how they would use them, details on their organization. They had to fill out this big, long kind of like, it's almost like a college application if you think about it, or a college essay, and then send it to them. Look, if you were just going to eliminate 22 out of the 30 teams in one fell swoop, why bother a week after doing that? Why would you do that? I mean, unless the agents were trying, because, and this is the theory that's going around, I can completely buy this, is that his agent was trying to get him to consider teams like the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Mets, etc., because, you know, it endorsement-wise, he can make more money, he can make up the difference. But this is a guy that turned down, if he had stayed till he was 25, he would have made a lot of money, like what, $250 million money, okay? He's considered the Babe Ruth of Japan, okay? He turned down a lot of money to come here now, and clearly he's a different animal. Look, not everybody can play in a big market. And I've said this off the air to a number of people. You know, people think about guys like Zach Greinke, who, you know, can't handle, they have anxiety that they can't handle certain situations. They can't handle big markets. They have to be in smaller markets, and some people just do better in those markets. Randy Johnson did better in Arizona and Seattle than he did in New York. Not because of age, but because he just didn't like big markets. He just didn't like it. Some guys aren't made for it. They don't want to be in it. This guy likes in his spare time going to his dorm room and playing with or his apartment or whatever, and playing video games quietly. And he's not a socialite. He's not, you know, he's just not that kind of guy. I'm not going to fault him for that. I mean, look, and I'm sure as far as stringing teams along, I think that was more his agents than it probably was anybody else. You wish him luck. Good for him. He stuck to his guns. He's doing what it was going to make him happy instead of, you know, what will give him more money or more fame or whatever. You know, I mean, I'll feel bad for him if he ends up in San Diego or Seattle, and it's going to take a long time for them to win. But he's also only 23 years old, so maybe he figures, hey, I have time on my side. You know, if it takes 5-6 years to get to be a world become a playoff team or a World Series champion, I'll still only be 29 or 30 if I choose to stay there. So I mean, I can understand it. I can. You know, I mean, sure, if you're a fan of the Yankees or something, you hate it, but you know, you can't get every player, and they're not all going to want to play for you. So I respect that. I think everybody has to respect that. I don't think look. And look, he needs to be happy if he's going to have a chance to perform at an elite level. Now, there's no guarantees with this guy. I don't care what he did in Japan. You've seen guys play well internationally and then come here and not do well. There's no guarantee he's going to be great. Or maybe he's a better pitcher than he is hitter, or a better hitter than he is pitcher here. I don't know. You'll have to see what happens. Is his performance going to be dependent on where he goes? And that it will probably have some impact, but we'll see. We'll see. We'll see what happens, but it was a shock. It really threw everybody for. I think the way it was done and the fact they eliminated so many teams at once was kind of interesting. I mean, he only asked December 22nd, so maybe that's kind of why he did it, to kind of expedite the process a little bit. I guess he met with the Angels today. Most people think it's going to be either the Mariners or the Padres that will get him. I would edge towards the Mariners because I think that they'd be more of a competitive fit for him. But there's also some people that believe that maybe he wants to go somewhere where he's the only Japanese or Asian player, so that and Seattle has Aaron Moore, so maybe that way he can forge his own path or be the only guy on that team. Maybe that's part of it. I know there's been a lot of talk out there about collusion. People think, well, maybe there's something to this, that maybe. The way this was all done, it seems like, all along there was kind of an idea of where he was going to go. He turned down all this money. Maybe he had an idea, like maybe there's some money on the side. That's why he did. I don't believe that. I mean, if somebody did do that, it gets found out, they'll have a penalty that's 3 times as bad as what Atlanta Braves got for their issue. But look, it is what it is. You give him credit for sticking to his guns, and you wish him every success, and we'll see where he goes. It's going to be interesting. Winter meetings next week. We'll cover it here on the show, and I would expect that he will be signed by the end of the winter meetings. I don't think he's going to get all the way to the December 22nd deadline. I really don't. I suspect he'll be signed by the end of next week. Again, I think it's either going to be Seattle or San Diego. I think it'll be one of those two. I think it's going to really come down to who makes the best preset, and maybe it might come down to, again, if he does want to be the only Asian player on the team. I don't know if I believe that theory, but that's been tossed around. Or if it comes down to maybe who has a better chance at winning quicker than Seattle would probably be the edge because they have a better team, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes, but it definitely was surprising to see what happened with Otani over the weekend. That was a big story. All right, so I just want to briefly touch on those baseball topics. Now, we got through, okay, so I'll put the baseball stuff aside. Let's get to wrestling, something that, we can kind of, something that I think my co-host can definitely get into a little bit more. I'm going to be very quick because I've talked a lot, and I want to get him on this. Last night's Raw, as we talk about Raw and SmackDown, not a lot of highlights. You had the weird Roman Reigns, Samoa Joe, Jason Jordan segment where Roman got booed when he faced Jason Jordan, got cheered when he faced Jason Jordan, got booed when he faced Samoa Joe. Clearly, they're setting something up there, maybe like a triple threat deal or something. There was some tension with Angle and Jordan. Roman Reigns had a great match with Jordan, and they continued the Samoa Joe thing. And so I guess we're heading for a triple threat there. Roman, Samoa Joe is the big program, but they're just going to kind of try to stall it out by using Jason Jordan, which I can understand. They continued the development of Paige in her stable Absolution. She beat Sasha Banks, first match in over a year. They went after Asuka again, and they kind of did the same thing as they did last week. So just kind of planting seeds there. Nia Jax apparently is getting a love angle with Enzo Amore. I guess that started last night with her backstage segment with him, brief backstage segment with him. The Shield had Ambrose and Rollins had their match for the tag team championship in the main event, which Samoa Joe and Roman Reigns got involved in, and they lost that match, shockingly. I think everybody thought they were going to win it. They did not. So we'll see where that feud goes. Some bit interesting developments there. I guess it's going to try to extend it even longer. Or maybe they'll make a match next week where it's the Shield versus Joe, Sheamus, and Cesaro. Anything to kind of keep extending things, I suppose. Finn Balor got to face Bo Dallas. A lot of people thought he was going to face Bray Wyatt, but they're all happy he didn't. What else was there last night? Braun Strowman faced Elias Sampson. That was was supposed to face, never really happened. But Kane interrupted that. And I guess there's going to be a match next week. I would imagine that's what the setup was, but we'll see. So not a Cruiserweights had a great match last night with Gulak winning. Great match there. So not a whole lot of the big developments. But Raw's going to be in a standstill until January anyway because they don't have a pay-per-view and they're just kind of going through the motions. But enough to hold your interest. And then SmackDown tonight, which I'm probably going to throw the mic on more because I didn't see all of it. I saw the beginning with Owens and Zayn, which was fantastic. The Zayn thing, like trying to explain what the difference in ringside and what's not ringside was really funny. And I know they set up Zayn versus Orton, with Kevin Owens handcuffed to the ring post. I saw the match they announced for Clash of Champions. Very, very interesting. But I saw that first segment. That's all I watched. So I can't really tell you much about SmackDown. So, Mike, your thoughts on Raw last night, and if you know any of the SmackDown stuff from tonight, you can give your thoughts on that as well.
Is it finally my turn to talk?
Yes, Mike, it is.
Oh, my gosh. It is finally my turn to talk. I was just laying there half asleep. He's not going to let me talk again, so I'm just going to pretend I'm asleep. Not even pretending, I'm asleep. And then you're like, oh, we boot the West Wing now. I'm like, I don't even know what you were talking about for 20 minutes. So, All right, wrestling. I will say this. Didn't watch all of SmackDown. I mean to watch all of SmackDown. I have to wait. But let me start with Raw. Because I know I saw some of Raw in a couple of days. The Braun Strowman match was pretty... Well, I mean, it was a decent match. Elias actually wrestled Braun Strowman really well. And they're like a jerk. What a bitch. What a bitch. Anyways, Elias and Braun Strowman had a really, really good segment, led to the Kane thing. I thought Kane would be there, but no. So next week we've got Kane versus Elias. Kane versus Elias. We've got Kane versus Braun Strowman. I expect Braun to totally win that, but I also expect some sort of stipulation to be added. But who knows? Who knows? Asuka beat Alicia Fox. Absolution comes down, and they don't attack Asuka, they attack Alicia Fox. They attack Foxy. Very sad for Alicia Fox. Paige says, oh, well, you know what? She's my best. Alicia Fox was my best friend. And then Mandy Rose and the other lady, Alicia Fox. It was a sad moment for Alicia Fox. Nothing, I mean, other than that, the Joe with the Roman Reigns thing was interesting. Bar versus another Bar versus Ambrose and Rollins match. They have not had a bad match so far, and they didn't have one now. It was a nice match. They built up the finish, and the Bar somehow retains twice. Good stuff so far. I'm looking forward to where they go from here. Excuse me. I've seen the Bludgeon Brothers match. Surprise, surprise. And then I saw the opening segment. Randy Orton came out of nowhere and RKO'd Kevin Owens. Later in the night, I don't know who won that match. I'm assuming Randy Orton beat Sami Zayn. I know that the match at Night of Champions is more than likely going to be Nakamura versus the best friends Owens and Zayn. Shane McMahon, special referee. Shane McMahon is special referee, and if Owens and Zayn lose, they're fired from WWE. Fired from SmackDown. All of WWE Raw included. So, chance Owens and Zayn lose, but I think they're telegraphing it here. I think they might be telegraphing it here. But it's fine. That's for the best, honestly. But I don't know. And I know Rusev and Aiden English had a cool moment. But then again, it's Rusev Day. It's always Rusev Day, and you should celebrate Rusev Day. Why aren't you celebrating Rusev Day, you monster? That's all that I know happened on SmackDown. Match, I guess. Yeah, that was about it.
I have a theory on that, on the Owens, Zayn, Orton, Nakamura match.
Well, Shane's the referee, yes. There's several theories going around. Daniel Bryan could get involved.
Yep, that's one of them. Because they've been teasing that.
In the end, Owens and Zayn are not being fired, so
I could see them being fired, and then I could see him being fired because maybe there's always because you know how Owens is. He might want time with his family, and that's a week before Christmas.
They don't have to be on the show.
No, I could see them being fired and then coming back and then being brought back, and then Shane finds out that he was overruled by like Stephanie and Triple H or something. You know what I mean? Because even though he's the commissioner of SmackDown, or you know, I could see something like that happening. Like they're not being.
I mean, there's something like I guess there's something that could happen like that, but I don't think there will be.
Because I feel like I just don't feel like they're going to win that match. I never thought they were going to win the match. That was the match I thought they'd lose. Not because Owens would get pinned, because Sammy would get pinned. Like, that was my feeling all along. I don't know. It's an interesting match. I mean, I didn't expect the stipulation. But it's an interesting match. I mean, I'll give them
It's a
that.
very interesting match.
Yeah. And they did a good job tonight with the setup. I mean, I just read what happened. It sounds like a good set. Everything sounds like it was very good. So, but yeah, I mean, look, that's been their A program all fall. So you can't really blame them for continuing to focus on that. It's been the only thing that's really made SmackDown interesting. So, and it's nice to see Orton and Nakamura getting something to do out of it finally. And it's a nice way to kind of get interest back in Nakamura after the whole Jinder Mahal thing.
Yeah. So, AJ Styles did something tonight. I don't know.
Not much. Really just going through the motions until we can end that feud, I guess.
Guess so.
Yeah. A couple other little things that came out today. That you know how the WWE's doing their infamous tour of India this week, which was a focus of so much discussion because we all thought Jinder would be champion going in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the show that show has Triple H and Roman Reigns, right?
Yep.
Triple H is going for the Intercontinental title in that match. Which I think is funny. He's facing Roman Reigns for the Intercontinental title.
Oh, in Abu Dhabi, okay.
Yeah. Which is cool. I mean, that's cool. It gives some meaning to it, I guess. He's gonna lose, but
well, it's a title held since like 99, 2000, so it's interesting.
Right. It is interesting. And I guess, a lot of people have been asked about Rob Van Dam, and, he kind of made those couple comebacks, and then everybody thought he might come back at some point again. Well, I guess he did an interview, and in the interview, he said the reason why he hasn't come back to wrestle is because I guess at one of his a wrestling show that he did, he got a concussion. And I guess that's the reason why he can't come back to WWE. Something about the concussion. It's one of those kind of issues. So yeah. So that's pretty much the reason why he's they hasn't been able to come back. So people have been wondering. That's the reason. That's the reason.
It's good. Well, it's good because he's not rushing back and injuring himself. So,
and I mean, look,
it's good for Rob. Good for Rob.
I don't think they'd be bringing him back anyway. Because I don't think they have a purpose for that. But that's if people. I know a lot of people wonder about that. So, I didn't mention it, but I forgot about the Matt Hardy Bray Wyatt thing last night. And that was hysterical. I'll give him that. That was really fun. I watched the folk. I missed the first part of it.
I forgot about that too.
That was really funny. That was really, really funny. That was great. I really hope
something.
I mean, I really hope they go all the way with that. I've heard talk that Vince will only go so far at it, but I hope. Look, if they go all the way with that, it could be entertaining. It could be fun. Something fun to do. Hey, it's not like Matt was doing anything anyway, so
No, he's woken.
Yeah, he's awoken. So not a big week of wrestling. Not a lot going on. Next week is WWE week. They got Raw on Monday. They got SmackDown Tuesday. They got NXT on Wednesday, which is going to be on USA next week, which is kind of cool. And then Thursday, it's Tribute to the Troops on Thursday, right? Is it Wednesday or Thursday?
Thursday.
Thursday, right. Okay. So Tribute to the Troops on Thursday. So big week for WWE. Always a big week there. And really, I mean, we keep talking about how it's kind of quiet in wrestling right now. You get through the holidays. Once you get past New Year's, it's going to pick up because you're going to be heading towards WrestleMania. So, you only got a few weeks to kind of get through before this kind of lull is over, more or less. So let's see here. I think did we do everything? I think we did everything. Yeah, we did everything. Wow. We did. Okay, cool. I'm just trying to make sure everything on my list. 56-43 Syracuse at the under 12. So Connecticut keeping it just close enough, but Syracuse doing their job holding them off. So things off and running here. Oh, wait a minute. Hang on. I better plug that back in.
Okay, well,
if I didn't,
trying to leave.
well, wait a minute. If I didn't do that, I completely ignored the fact that my charger was dying.
Sure.
So,
Battery.
yeah. Well, yeah, my charger for my adapter wasn't in, so I'm an idiot today. Well, that's just the way it is. So yeah, so I had to plug that in. Otherwise, we would have been lost as we head down to the end here. So, all right. So we got through everything. That is it. We had a lot to do. We did it, the best way we could. So that's it for tonight. As always, the show might be over. Does not mean you have to stop interacting or contributing to the show. Continue to have your voice heard. Send us your feedback, questions, reactions, opinions on anything to do with the show, anything we talked about, topic ideas or breaking news items, related to sports, entertainment, wrestling you want us to cover. Any of these things you can do by email, Facebook, and Twitter. You can email us at itspotlight401@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight401. And just use hashtag itspotlight401 for anything you tweet in regards to the show or anything you tweet to us. And, of course, you can find us on Facebook. Just search In the Spotlight 401 on Facebook, and then make sure that you follow us on there once you find us, or like our fan page once you find it. Again, follow us on Facebook and Twitter, very important, so you can interact with us and, of course, have access to all the latest information about the show, especially when it comes to scheduling. Again, on Facebook, search for In the Spotlight 401. Make sure that you like our page and follow us on there. And, of course, on Twitter, search for wow, I can't talk tonight. Woo! Happy Tuesday. At IT Spotlight 411, and then make sure that you follow us on there as well, because we post random thoughts and other things on both Facebook and Twitter, along with scheduling information and other information in regards to the show. So make sure that you follow us on social media. Very, very, very important. You have two ways in which to keep up with the show and look back at classic episodes. You can hear stream us anytime on Google Plus and YouTube. Just search for In the Spotlight 401. And when you do, you'll be taken to our show pages on both those sites. You will have access to every episode we produce for Google Plus and YouTube. So that's every episode from mid-October 2015, all the way up to tonight's current episode. This episode's available for you to stream anytime you want. Just search In the Spotlight 401 on Google Plus and YouTube. If streaming's not your thing, maybe you prefer to listen to us on the go, or listen to us in general rather than seeing us, or maybe you're interested in older episodes of the show. If any of that applies to you, maybe you want to check us out on our main host sites, Podbean and iTunes. To search for In the Spotlight 411 on both Podbean and iTunes. When you do, you'll be taken to our show pages on both sites, where you'll have access to every episode we produced in the over 7 years we've been doing this show. That's every episode from our original Blog Talk Radio run from October 2010 to January 2011. All of our talk show episodes from January 2011, all the way up to mid-October 2015, and all of our episodes from Google Plus and YouTube from mid-October 2015 all the way up to tonight's current episode, all transferred into audio format for your convenience. Every episode in audio format for your convenience, in order from the most recent date to the oldest, most recent being tonight, oldest way back in October 2010. All episodes are available for you to listen to anytime you want. Maybe you're a longtime fan and wants to catch up on an episode, or look back at an episode from 3 or 4 years ago, or a new fan wants to look up at something like that for the first time. Or maybe you just want to listen to a current episode, missed an episode. Any of those apply to you. You can check us out, again, on our main host sites, Podbean and iTunes, to search In the Spotlight 411. Google Plus, YouTube, Podbean, iTunes are your 4 ways to keep up with our show and look back at classic episodes. Again, Google Plus, YouTube, Podbean, iTunes, your ways to keep up with the show and look back at classic episodes. To search for In the Spotlight 411. Again, search for In the Spotlight 411 on those sites. I want to thank Mike for being here tonight. Thank you, Mike.
Time for bed.
I want to thank myself for another great show, pat myself on the back, and thank all of you for your continued support and your contributions to the show. Thank you so much for watching. To those that will be watching or listening to this later, thank you to you as well. All right, 2 things, okay? Now, right now, I would say there will be a show on Thursday. I would say there is a show on Thursday. There is a chance that that show could be moved to tomorrow. I will know probably in the afternoon tomorrow. It depends on how doctor's appointment goes and everything else, and we'll see how everything goes. So basically what I'm telling you all is this. Stay tuned to Facebook and Twitter. If you don't follow us on either one, I can't imagine why you don't, then I would encourage you all to find us on Google Plus and YouTube at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern time tomorrow, and just keep checking to see if we have a show. If we don't, then you'll know it's on Thursday at that time. If we do, then you'll know that we don't have a show on Thursday. Right now, I would say Thursday is a definite. There's also the chance that if we do a show on Thursday, that we end up doing it early and it's a short show. A couple of little things up in the air right now. I do not know. So stay tuned to Facebook and Twitter tomorrow. And again, if you don't follow us on either one, and shame on you if you don't, okay, then be on YouTube, and I should say YouTube because we're not on Google Plus anymore. On YouTube, where you normally check us out live at 9 o'clock from Eastern time. Just keep checking, see if we have a show, and if we don't, then we'll have a show on Thursday at that time on YouTube. If we do, then we don't. So that's the law, kind of thing. That's just the way it is. So keep all that in mind for tomorrow. If regardless of what that show is, tomorrow or Thursday, entertainment show, box office beat, TV highlights, all that kind of stuff. TV highlights, the return of the film picks of the week. We'll probably do a little entertainment news discussion. Not a lot, probably a little. Depends on when we do it. If we have a full show, then we'll do a little bit more. If we don't, I was going to start the film awards process tonight. We're not this week, not tonight, but this week. We're not going to do that. We're going to wait till next week. We're going to start that on Tuesday of next week. So I decided against doing it this week. I just didn't think it was a good idea. So we'll wait till next week on that. Again, keep tuned to Facebook and Twitter tomorrow. We'll update you on what's going to be going on with the show. If not, check us out on YouTube tomorrow night at 9 o'clock Eastern time, just to be on the safe side. And if we don't do a show out there tomorrow night, then we'll obviously be doing a show on Thursday at probably that same time. Again, we could always move it up, but I'd highly doubt that. So a little bit of uncertainty. I don't like to do it that way, but I just don't have an answer at this point, so I'm better to be safe than sorry. So we have one more show this week. Again, it'll either be tomorrow at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern time or Thursday at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, with the possibility of maybe being a little earlier, but we'll see. So stay tuned again to Facebook and Twitter. We'll update you on that. And again, if you don't do that, if Facebook and Twitter is not your thing, then of course just check out YouTube both nights, where you usually find us, and just keep checking at the usual show time to see if we're doing a show, and that'll give you the answer you're looking for. So with that being said, that is it. I hope you all have a great rest of your night, a great Wednesday, and if we don't talk to you tomorrow, a great Thursday. We'll see you back here for our next show, either tomorrow night at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, or Thursday night at this point at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. Until either tomorrow or Thursday, I hope you have a great night. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you tomorrow, Thursday. Good night.